You can taste the brown sugar and the walnuts have such good flavor. Did I say walnuts? Pecans, not walnuts. Hi, I'm Amy. This is House of Nash Eats, and today we are making Southern Pecan Pralines. All right, so to get started making our Southern Pecan Pralines, we are going to add 1.5 cups of granulated sugar and 1.5 cups of brown sugar. And it's a light brown sugar that I'm using. And then we're going to also add 1 cup of evaporated milk. You could also use half and half, but I always have evaporated milk on hand in the pantry, so that's what I like to use. And then a little bit of salt, and 6 tablespoons of salted butter. And I've cubed those so that they'll combine more easily. I'll leave a link in the notes below to the recipe so you can print it out and follow along. Then we're just going to turn this on to about medium heat and start heating these until the sugars have dissolved. Okay, so we're looking for the butter to melt and the sugar to dissolve and the mixture to come to a boil. Once it starts boiling, then we're going to insert our candy thermometer and keep cooking this. So I did a little research beforehand to see what the correct pronunciation would be. We always call these pecan pralines. That's just how we pronounce it, but I've heard them pronounced pralines instead of pralines, or pecan. So you can call these pecan pralines if you prefer. So the first time I ever had pecan pralines was in Savannah, Georgia. My college roommate lives in Atlanta, and we went down there to visit her and her family. And there are candy shops on the riverfront in Savannah, and we went there and had some warm pecan pralines, and they were amazing. I came straight home and had to make them for myself. And if you've never been to Savannah, Georgia, it's absolutely beautiful there. It's got to be one of my favorite places that we've ever visited. There's all these beautiful old live oak trees with Spanish moss hanging down from them. Beautiful architecture. It's just a gorgeous, fascinating city with amazing, interesting history and so much to see. You really should visit. Okay, so you want to continue to stir it occasionally, pretty frequently, until it starts coming to a boil like this. That helps keep the butter from separating from the sugar and get everything to cook together. Once it starts bubbling, that's when I insert my candy thermometer. I really don't recommend making candy without a candy thermometer. It makes such a big difference and saves you so much guesswork. This is the only way I make candy. But the upside is they're super inexpensive and you'll have success almost every time. So we're gonna stick this on and wait until our praline mixture comes to about 235 to 240 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's also known as softball stage. I also really recommend using the right pan size. If your pan is too large, you're going to have more candy against the hot surface of your pan, and it's more difficult to regulate the temperature. So I'm using a medium size, good quality pan that's not too thin so that my candy cooks evenly. We don't want to scorch it on the bottom and burn it. I've had people comment on this post who are either from Georgia or they've just visited there, and they say that these taste just like the pralines from River Street Sweets, which is one of the famous candy shops there. And you can also get a chocolate version from River Street Sweets, and I've got a recipe for those on my blog too, and I'll leave a link below. Okay, once your candy reaches that 235 to 240 degrees, we're just going to pull out our candy thermometer and take it off of the heat. Okay, and once you take it off the heat, you're going to let it sit for 5 minutes. This is kind of important because it needs that time to cool down just a little bit before we add our vanilla and our pecans and finish the candy. So now that our praline mixture has been sitting for 5 minutes to cool down just a little bit, we're going to go ahead and add in our vanilla. So this is my homemade vanilla extract. I love to use it. It's so good. And then I've got some chopped, or not chopped. You could use chopped pecans, but I like using whole pecans because I like their shape. So it's 2 cups of whole pecans. And then we're just going to start stirring. Now, this is where you've got to use a little elbow grease. You have to stir this mixture by hand, really kind of beating it. You've got to give it a little effort for about 2 minutes. And what that's doing is it's helping to cool it to the right temperature. And you're going to see that it will change and it will not be quite so glossy, and it will thicken up and be ready to set up on your baking sheet. Now, if you don't do it quite long enough, I'll show you, hopefully, it'll puddle out and you won't have the same like kind of thicker, almost cookie-like shape or texture to your praline. If you do it too long, your mixture is going to set up and it will turn crumbly like right in front of your eyes. You can usually save that by adding a teaspoon or two of really hot water and beating that in. But we'll see if we can solve some of those problems here. And you can totally be successful with this on your first try. Really, this is a pretty simple candy recipe because you add almost all of your ingredients up front, you cook it to the right temperature, you pull it off and just stir it until it sets up. The hardest part about this is finding that right moment to start scooping out your pralines onto your baking sheet so that they set up properly. There's no need to toast the pecans first. The candy mixture is so hot that they will toast all on their own just from the heat of the candy. One thing to watch out for is if you happen to store your pecans in the freezer to prolong their shelf life, which I do, you can't put cold pecans into this mixture. It will really change the way it sets up. So make sure if you've got your pecans in the freezer that you pull them out and give them plenty of time to come to room temperature first. Candy making is really a labor of love. It's something that I do every holiday season, and we like to make plates of candy and cookies to take to friends and neighbors. I always make at least a couple of different candy recipes like these pralines or some homemade toffee or divinity, which is one of my other favorites. Okay, I can see that this is starting to lose some of its glossiness and it's starting to get a little thicker. You can both see it in the texture, but you'll also feel it in your arm when it starts to thicken a bit. I don't think it's quite there, but I want to show you what it looks like when you scoop it out if you want to do a test praline to see if you're there, because it's easier to stop a little bit ahead and then keep stirring than it is if you go too far. So I've got a baking sheet lined with a silicone baking mat, or you could use parchment paper. I'm using a small cookie scoop. You just scoop it out and put it right there on your baking mat. And you can see how it puddles around the pecans and they don't mound up quite as much as I'd like them to. Now, if your pecans turn out, or if your pecan pralines turn out just like that, they're still going to taste delicious. Just eat them like that or chop them up and put them over some ice cream. It's such a good ice cream topping. But if you keep stirring just a little bit longer, they'll set up more than that. Okay, I've been stirring this for another minute and I'm going to give it a try and see if we're getting a little bit closer. Okay, I can see that that one's holding a little bit more shape. I think I've got 1 more minute to go. Okay, that is what we want. You can see that it's not puddling out too much. It makes a nice mound around those pecans. And this is just what we're going for. At this point, you want to work kind of quickly because they will continue to set up in the pan. And if that happens towards the end, just add a little bit of hot water, like about a teaspoon, to break it up again. And there we go. These are our Southern Pecan Pralines. Now we have to let these cool down till they're mostly cool. These are actually really delicious to eat when they're still a little bit warm. They almost melt in your mouth. They're so good. So I'm gonna give them about 10 to 15 minutes to set up a little bit before I try one. Okay, so these are some of the pralines that I made earlier and they have set up. You'll notice some of them will get a little white spots or cloudy spots on the top. That's totally normal. I've never had a batch turn out without those spots. And even the ones we got at River Street Sweets usually had a few of those spots on them. So if that happens to you, totally normal. So now you can keep them in an airtight container at room temperature on the counter, and they should be good for at least a week or two. You can also freeze these for up to a couple of months. They freeze really well. So these are great for making ahead of the holidays. You can always have some on hand when you have visitors come over, if you want a quick edible gift to give to a friend or a teacher or a neighbor. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes and these have cooled enough that I can pull them off and stack them, and I'm going to have one while they're still just a little bit warm. So they break apart and you eat them just like a cookie or a piece of candy, but they're not too sticky. They're so good. These are heaven. They've got this crumbly, melt in your mouth quality you can taste the brown sugar, and the walnuts have such good flavor. Did I say walnuts? Pecans, not walnuts. The pecans have such good flavor. They're nice and a little bit crunchy with the crumbly praline brown sugar kind of coating around them. These, I think of them as kind of a cross between candy and a cookie that you don't bake, and oh, they're to die for. Eat them just like this, crumble them and put them on top of ice cream. They are an amazing dessert, and people will love you if you bring these to a party. I hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more great recipes just like this one.